Life is hard, and trying to be gentle with yourself can be even harder because this world can feel so rough, and you have to feel like I have to match the energy. If it's rough and it's tough, I have to be rough or tough, or I'm going to get rolled over. And so, in this video, I want to talk to you about how to be more gentle with yourself in a world that just feels so tough. So, first, I want you to understand that you do not have to expect yourself to know things that no one has taught you. Due to social media, people a lot of times make you feel more down about yourself than good. People make posts like, oh, you need to buy my course. You know why? Because you just worked your 9 to 5 slaving and doing all this stuff, and I just made your paycheck in 1 hour sitting on the beach. And it makes you feel down because it's like, why can she do this? And why can he do that? And a lot of times we're down about ourselves on things that no one has ever taught us. Like you were never taught how to do the things that that individual is doing. You were never taught sometimes how to love. You were never taught sometimes how to make more money or how to, be there for yourself or how to support yourself or all these other things. And I feel like you have to lose that expectation for yourself because it makes you feel down. And there's two ways to look at it. First and foremost, I'm not saying that you shouldn't know anything, but you don't have to know everything. Like, there also is a certain level of expectation you have to lose because it's like, you know what? I don't care about doing that thing. Like, for example, right? Let's say, everyone's in their girl boss era. Everyone wants to be a girl boss or whatever. And I recently was listening to this podcast by this lady who's a multimillionaire in real estate. And she was saying how, she doesn't know how to cook. She was like, I don't know how to cook. I barely can clean. But she makes enough money that she hires individuals to do that. So yes, there are some people like Anara Smith. Not sure if you guys are familiar with her on TikTok. She makes all the stuff from scratch. There's some women that may look at her and feel like, oh, I wish I could do that. How does she know how to do that? But then there's some other individuals who are on the other side, like the woman I said in the podcast, who is like, you know what, that's great, but I don't have that to do. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't make anyone better than the other, but you have to realize what are these things actually beneficial for you? That lady who I was talking about, she doesn't have the time to sit there and make bubble gum from scratch and make, pies every day from scratch. And reverse, the Nara girl who makes all the food from scratch, she doesn't even have enough time or doesn't even know how to make the money doing real estate. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't make any woman better than the other, but it's like if they had the expectation that they have to know how to do what the other one knows how to do, they wouldn't even have time for themselves. Because it's like I'm supposed to run a multi-million-dollar real estate company and do all this stuff, but then I'm also supposed to cook from home. I'm supposed to cook from home from scratch and do all this stuff and then run a company. It doesn't make sense. And so a lot of times we have to think about that for ourselves. You want to know how to do all these things that are so random. They don't have real benefit for your life. And even if you know all these things, you can't even use them all. So I think you have to figure out, what do you expect yourself to know? You get what I'm saying? What do you expect yourself that you want to learn, and then take the action steps necessary to learn those particular things? And then on the other side, I want you to know, just because you are outside of traditional schooling does not mean you don't have to learn. What messes up a lot of people as well, and we're so down on ourselves, is once we get out of school, we have this mindset that everything we know or we're supposed to know, we should have already learned. You can learn, and you're actually supposed to learn on a consistent basis. I feel like nowadays that's another reason why people are just so boring, because everything people know is from social media and people aren't really learning things particularly. And so we have this mindset like, oh, if I didn't learn this back then, if I didn't learn that back then, like I shouldn't have to learn this thing. And it probably isn't beneficial for my life. No, it possibly wasn't beneficial for the life that you had, but for the person you want to become, it probably will be beneficial. So don't also have this expectation that because you reached a certain age or because you reached a certain status in life that you don't have to learn and you should know everything. Even if you're in a particular career field, you can still learn stuff more in that career field. Even if you want to change your career field, don't expect yourself to be like, oh, well, I started this career where I got to stay in it. No, you can learn things in a new one so you can get to where you want to be in that new one. Like, don't expect yourself just to know things that no one has taught you. And even going out of, monetary things such as making more money and things like that, it also happens on an emotional level. Me particularly, I'm thinking about for myself, like I've mentioned on the channel before, dating field, not the best for me. But one thing I've noticed, I had to be honest with myself, is I was never taught how to love a man. I didn't have a father growing up. I didn't know how to necessarily love a man. So of course, when it comes to doing it in relationships, it's going to be a little hard for me. And it's not saying it's something that I never can do, but I think the first step in things is realizing I don't know how to do this thing. A lot of people go into things without even realizing, wait, I don't know how to do this. And they get mad at themselves when they don't know how to do it. So first realize you don't know how to do this thing, and then figure out the action steps that are going to be necessary for you to learn how to do this thing if this is something you feel like will be beneficial for your life. But I say that to say, don't expect yourself to know things that no one has taught you. Next, and this kind of goes as well into the learning about new things, you do not have to care about yourself to care for yourself. I think another thing that messes people up is we have this mindset or we have this idea of like, oh, I have to care about myself to actually care for myself. I have to care about myself to want to go to the gym. I have to care about myself to want to start that business, i.e., learn new things. And you don't. And a lot of times that's what holds you back because it's actually reversed. And a great example of this is if you go to get a pet, right? Once you get a pet, you have a certain amount of care for that pet. That pet did not have to do anything. That pet didn't have to, look a certain way. That pet didn't have to treat you a certain way. Like you had a certain love for that pet as soon as you got it, and you bought it food and you bought it clothes and you cared for it. It didn't have to do anything for you to care about it. And as time went on, you cared about it more and more and more. And you still cared about it even when it did things it wasn't supposed to, such as chew up your shoes or use the bathroom in the house. Like you possibly reprimanded the pet, but you still cared about the pet. And you allowed the pet to grow and you taught the pet. And I think you have to have that same understanding when it comes to yourself and the same treatment when it comes to yourself. Because a lot of times we do the reverse. What we do is we expect ourselves to achieve something. We expect ourselves to get something. And then what we tell ourselves is, once you get that thing, I'll care about you. But you just got a pet and you give it all this love and all this care and it's still doodles in the house. But the issue is when we do the I eat you the shoes in human form idea of things, like do things quote unquote wrong, we're down on ourselves. And we use that as an excuse of why we don't deserve good things, on why we don't deserve to learn or we don't deserve to go after the things we want to in life. And so one thing I definitely recommend to do is have the mindset that you don't have to care about yourself to care for yourself. Because what happens over time is similar to the pet. The more you start caring about just caring for yourself, doing simple things such as doing things because you know you should do them, right? I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to the gym. I don't want to wake up at this time, but I'm going to wake up at this time. I don't necessarily have to have a specific reason or intention behind it, but I just know it's the right thing to do. A lot of times we know things are the right thing to do, but we convince ourselves that we don't have to do them or we shouldn't do them because what's the point? The point is it's the right thing to do. And so over time of doing those things, I realized specifically for myself, I cared more about myself. Like once I start showing up for myself, just because I had the opportunity to do it, you get what I'm saying? Just because I had the opportunity to wake up, just because I had the opportunity to start my day earlier, things like that. I did it simply because it was the right thing to do. After a certain amount of time, one, it became a standard for me. And two, I realized I started caring more about myself because I'm like, well, I'm the kind of girl that does this. I'm the kind of girl that does that. I wake up early and I go to the gym and I try to eat healthy and I do all these things. So I built up a standard for my own self that I didn't realize. But the root of it came from the fact that before I even cared about myself, I simply just started caring for myself and it came. Next, I want you to understand that you don't have to care about everything. A lot of times, too, we're very down on ourselves and we become very rough because the world is rough. You do not have to care about everything that's going on in the world. And I know some people are going to have some sentiments about that, but I personally feel like nowadays people are tying their identity to what is going on in the world, and that should not be the case. I personally feel like it started after the Trump election. I feel like before the Trump election in 2016, yes, people voted for who they voted for, but it wasn't like that was your identity. Nowadays, people tell you who they vote for, and some people literally will not talk to you anymore. I've heard about families literally not talking to individuals and cutting individuals off because they voted for a particular individual. I want you to understand that is not your identity. Stop feeling like this world is you. Like you are your own person. There's a quote in the Bible, don't get me to lying, but it said something to the effect of, I am from this world, but I am not of this world. So don't have this expectation that you have to know about everything going on and you have to actually care about everything. Like, don't get me wrong, there's certain things going on in this world that is very unfortunate, that is very sad, but I'm not going to read up on it. I'm not going to learn a whole bunch of information about them simply because it's too much stuff. And then people get the identity of, okay, since I care about this thing, then I have to care about that thing, I have to care about that thing because I don't want to seem like I'm a hypocrite. No, you don't have to care about everything. It's actually best that you pick and choose what you actually want to care about, and then you go like that. But even realizing that, even some people might be like, oh, well, I'm not really into the activist stuff and I don't really be worried about other stuff going on in the world. You are worried about stuff that's going on in your community too much. And when I say your community, usually that's 1,000 to 15,000 people on social media. You have to realize, like, when you saw that girl post that her something happened to her cousin one town over, when you saw that guy post that something happened to his mom one state over, that gave you a sense of scarcity. It made you feel scared for yourself. Like, oh my God, did you heard about what happened to her? You heard about what happened to him? I want people to realize we live in one of the safest worlds that we've ever had. Statistically speaking, we have a lot less crime. Like, 100, 200, 300 people were dying at crazy rates, but it doesn't feel like that because now we know about everything that's going on. So I want you to realize you have to lower your amount of information that you're intaking because it makes you feel like the world is so much scarier. It makes you feel like the world is so much rougher than it actually is, unfortunately. So I know this one was a short one. That's it. But I recently got, an email about a question and just asking, like, how do I just be softer with myself and gentler with myself? And I hope this video was helpful for you and anyone else who saw this video. I'm definitely going to start doing like email questions. So you guys can, I'm gonna have an email below where you guys can ask me any question you want. And there's nothing off limits. It could be TMI, it could be whatever, and it's going to be discreet. So I'm not gonna say your name. You can say your age or something if you want to, but I will never say your name, tell you who you are, and I'll start answering questions on my videos. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and sign up for my newsletter. I appreciate you guys so much.